a couple of things as we get started. One is we appreciate Pastor Lee and his family. They provided all of our breakfast for us this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Pastor Lee, as you know, is just doing a tremendous job up at the Korean Holiness Church in Macedonia. And last year at our district assembly, we took up an offering and gave that to their church. Just the generosity of we believe in them. They're making a big difference. They're actually working and cooperating with the Korean church that's in Cleveland. And again, we appreciate, and they just wanted to thank you for your generosity and your offerings, and we appreciate it. Pastor Lee's house, if you were paying attention on Sunday, we had a lot of horrible weather that was coming through and tornado warnings, and their property was damaged by the tornado. Their house is okay, but they had several trees that were uprooted by that tornado, and they had some electric lines come down. So they have to. We appreciate them coming. He told this is kind of the responsibility. They had said that they'd come and they'd do this, and then he was telling me this morning they have electric lines down. I said, Pastor Lee, you should let us know. You didn't need to be here or whatever. And he goes, no, we promised that we wanted to come and we do this. So again, we appreciate that. And just remember them as they have all of these trees and just different things on their property they need to get cleared up. Well, here's what we're doing today. I'm just going to tell you straight off, this is probably not going to be the most exciting teen day that you've ever been to, all right? I know that. However, I would say this, it may be, I think, one of the most important. We have a lot of things to cover. There's been a lot of things that are happening. You know, I kind of put on that card. There's a lot of stuff behind the scenes. And, you know, I've had things come to my desk. You know, we get all of these emails and phone calls, you know, dear Mr. DS, would you pass this on to your pastors? And I'm like, oh, you know, how do we do this? What is the best time? And there was just so much of what we've been working on. I just wanted to spend this time just kind of getting us into the loop. Here's some information that you need to know because things are changing and they're not staying the same, and we want you to be informed. We're taping this. We're going to put this up. We have I appreciate Matt doing this. We have a YouTube, what we call it, a page or a YouTube thing, all right? That's my age. And you know, you can go back. There'll probably be things that you want, that you hear, and you're like, I need to, you know, revisit this, what was said or what was done. You can go back to that. Also, our pastors who are not able to be here, they'll be able to get on and view this. So here's some of the stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about money in a good way. We're going to talk about education. We're going to talk about events. We're going to talk about spiritual life. We have all of these type of things, and we want you to be in the loop of it. First of all, let me talk about money. There's a couple of things that you need to know about money. Hold on with those for just a second, okay? This is a brand new initiative that is being rolled out. It's called the Compass Initiative. You probably haven't heard anything about this. Let me talk to you just a little bit, and we're going to show you a short video clip about the Compass Initiative. The Church of the Nazarene has $1 million to give away, is what it is. Yes, I know. So what they want to do is they realize there are many problems, and pastors and clergy are struggling with money, just like many things. A couple of things that are at the forefront of that. Number one, education debt. Number two, personal debt. Number three, retirement planning. How can we help with that? And like I said, the Lilly Foundation has given $500,000 to this. You know, $500,000. They've raised another $500,000. And this Compass Initiative. This is not just here's money, but there's a journey is kind of what they're calling it, and that you would go through, you would work through it kind of in some financial fitness, and they're giving people up to $5,000, and it's a matching of $5,000 towards student debt. So if anybody has any student debt, $5,000, and again, it's matching because they're trying to work with churches and include this in. So it'd be $5,000 from Compass, and it'd be $5,000 from your church or your district, and how we can cooperate in that, to a total of, it would be a max of $10,000. I don't want to misrepresent this, because if you don't need $10,000, I'm not going to give you $10,000. It might be $6,000, it might be another amount. That's student debt, reducing student debt. Also personal debt. I know many pastors who have had to go into significant debt just to be able to pastor, just to be able to make ends meet. And it's true. This is going to help in that. And then also, for some of our pastors that are older, as they're moving towards retirement age, and we're not prepared for that. And this again could be contributions that could help with that. So first thing we're going to do is we've got a video up here, and Dick, you want to cue this video up for us? And I know it's up on the screen. It's going to be a little hard to see since we're sitting back here. But if nothing else, you can hear this. And this is just an introduction, a little more information about the Compass Initiative to help you be aware of what it is.
Men and women all across the United States are responding to God's call on their lives to be preachers of God's Word and pastors in our Nazarene churches. All of these men and women receive excellent theological education and preparation for full-time ministry through Nazarene universities, Nazarene Theological Seminary, Nazarene Bible College, and through various educational avenues. However, this education is not cheap. The majority of students graduate with significant debt. Although our ministers are well-trained theologically, many have received little training in financial management. Add to that the fact that 50% of the Nazarene churches in the United States have an average attendance of 50 or less, and 2/3 of those ministers are paid at or below the poverty level. Debt and financial stress have become commonplace in the lives of our ministers. Low salaries, medical emergencies, economic downturns, improperly constructed compensation plans, car repairs, children's braces, no plan for retirement savings, college for their children, aging parents, the list goes on and on. At times, a pastor can be so overwhelmed by finances that making Christ-like disciples is not even on the radar. In some cases, the pastor never teaches or preaches about finances because of the shame surrounding his or her own financial situation. A recent survey of Nazarene pastors found that over 30% have seriously considered leaving the ministry because of debt and financial stress. What if there was a way to relieve our pastors' financial burdens? What if there was a way to empower our pastors to live and to teach biblical financial management? What if we gave our pastors financial resources, tools, and training for free? That dream is becoming a reality. The Compass Initiative provides direct financial relief to qualifying pastors and full-time associates through its Ministerial Excellence Fund by offering grants for 1. Student debt relief, 2. Personal debt relief, and 3. Retirement readiness. Qualifying ministers will enter into the Compass Journey, a 1-year support and accountability process with their local church, developing a personal plan for financial literacy, management, and well-being. Some may be invited to an intensive weekend of training, inspiration, and practical skills in personal financial management called the Compass True North Retreat. The Compass Initiative has also developed an online collection of practical financial resources and tools that are available to everybody. That's right, even if you do not qualify for participation in the Compass Journey or the Ministerial Excellence Fund, the Compass Academy resources are available to you at compassinitiative.org. What if every Nazarene pastor in the U.S. became more financially stable and more confident in teaching and preaching biblical financial stewardship? Imagine the possibilities.
Up here, and like I said, all of this information, this was only rolled out to us as district superintendents a couple of months ago in September, actually. So I wish I could tell you that I knew all the nuts and bolts of this and everything, but we're trying to come up to speed. First part is just presenting it to you. There is a lot of information. Sure, Lee?
There is a webinar on that put out that I attended, and it's packed.
Good.
They're just
Good. Lee said that there's a webinar that you can get information. If you go to their website, which again, if you just Google Compass Initiative, it's there. There are a lot of resources on there, but just know this is there. They're going to give this money away. Does everybody understand? They're going to give this money away to someone. And why couldn't it be some of us? You know, take advantage of it. Okay, that's the first thing about money. Second thing has to do with pensions and benefits. And now Matt and Janet are going to pass around some sheets. I hope we have enough. If we don't, we'll see if we can get some more. Here's the thing about pensions and benefits. If we need to make sure that all of our pastors are taking full advantage of what is there for us, okay? If we just kind of live in the ignorance of, you know what, someone's watching out for me and it's all going to be okay and whatever, that's not good enough. And we want to make sure that all of our pastors have taken the initial steps to get what is, what is yours, what really the church has for you. We're passing around these forms, and it says Letter of Agreement Form, the Nazarene 403B Retirement Savings Plan. Every pastor needs to fill one of these out, and maybe you already have, okay? But every pastor needs to fill one of these out and get one of these on file. That is step number one to getting your pensions and benefits, the benefits that are there for you. It's also important if you have changed churches, if you've moved to a new location, then you need to get this updated. There's information on the back as far as like where to send this in. Also, you can call under where it says at the very top, there's a place where it says questions, and there's an 866 number that you can call. You can even just ask, this is my name, this is who I am, this is where I am. Do I have this on file? And they can check with you. But for instance, let me use you, Matt, as an example. Matt has his district license. He's new to the Grace Church of the Nazarene. You know, Matt needs to fill this out. These benefits are for if you have your district license or if you're ordained, these benefits are for you, okay? If you're an associate, these benefits are for you. Let's put up, Dick, that little chart. And I know that this is going to be hard to see, but some of the pension stuff, especially for our longtime pastors, it's changed. And what is happening now is different than maybe what it was 20 years ago. And I'm not sure I can explain because some of us are grandfathered and how some of you may know that. But let me tell you what the benefits are right now. If your church, things are based on first you have to enroll, but the second thing has to do with your church and your pensions budget. If your church pays zero in pensions budget, you get nothing. You get zero. So if you put in zero, you get zero. If you put in at least $1, guess what? You get benefits. So it really makes no sense you have to contribute $1. And that's the first step. From $1 to 49% of your pensions. So let's just say your pensions budget is $1,000. Let's just use that. So if you pay from $1 to $490, then here's what you receive as benefits. Number one, you have $15,000 in life insurance. Okay, that's for you. There's also disability insurance that you receive that would be at $400 a month. So you receive life insurance benefits of $15,000. You also disability insurance of $400. So that's from $1 to 49% of your pensions budget. If you pay from 50% to 99% of your pensions budget, okay? 50% to 99% of your pensions, what that increases, you still get $15,000 of life insurance, $400 of the disability insurance, and then $200 is just contributed into your retirement fund. Because right here, you're signing up, and this enrolls you in a 403B retirement plan, okay? So you get enrolled, and then if you're paying your district budget, the denomination just puts $200 a year into that fund for you. They're taking care of that. Now, if you pay 100%, if you pay all of your pensions budget, there's the life insurance, the disability insurance, there's the $200 a month, and then also what they do is they take 10% of your pensions budget and then put that also in as well, up to $200. So again, let's say, 10%. So let's say your budget was $1,000, like I say, and you pay $1,000 into that. So you're going to get the life insurance, the disability insurance. They're putting $200 a year into that, and then 10% of your budget, which would be another $100 that they're going to put in. So $300 will be contributed into your pensions fund, and that's for you. So you think about like your church is contributing $1,000. $300 went into your personal 403B. They're also paying life insurance. They're also paying disability insurance for you. Okay? If your budget is over or under that 1,000, again, it's 10% of that. Now, one last category. If you pay all of your pensions budget and you're paying all of your education budget, your Mount Vernon budget, what they do then is there's all of those things I mentioned before, the life insurance, disability insurance, the $200 goes into your fund. They're also matching the 10% of your contribution, what your budget was. And then also then what they do is they match any other contributions that you or your church is putting into up to $250. So when I say matching, understand this, it's a 50% match. So what I would mean by that is if your church or you contributed $500 into your retirement account, another $250 would go into there because you're paying. So that's if you're paying all of your education budget and all of your pensions budget. And I know a lot of us are doing that. So understand that those things, like for instance, you may not have known that part with if you're paying both of those budgets, that there's that other match that goes in there. Make sure that you're contributing into that fund, because that's another $250 that they're just going to give to you, that they're going to put in. Now, you can find this if you go to pensions and benefits. There is so much information on there. There's so much information. I know it can be overwhelming, but where you can find this is if you go to the tab and look under FAQ, which is frequently asked questions. You can find this chart, and it's the chart that we have up there that you can see. It's a chart that I have here, and this is a lot of the basic information. But the very first thing that we need to do, you would be shocked how many of our pastors, and I'm just not saying our pastors here in East Ohio, I'm talking across our denomination, have not taken this first step. And if this first step of filling this form has not been done, we can't do anything else. Pensions hands are really tied. You don't have an account for any of those funds to go into. Understand? So that's an important.
If you're getting statements, like I've gotten statements that's already told me this is what I'm going to get when I retire, I assume they have that.
You would assume. But again, let's Daryl's laughing back there.
I was going to ask a similar question. I've been getting statements probably 10, 15 years now, and I noticed like at the end of the year, they said so much was contributed. And it wasn't until I moved to Delaware that I actually started putting my own contributions in, but it's really through my salary package. My church just sends a small amount each month.
Right.
So I assume I'm enrolled in that, but
you probably are. But one thing I would check, and again, this is the assumption part, especially since you've moved from Indiana, to Delroy. It may need updated. I was talking to the people from pensions, and they said, these things do need updated. If information has changed, you've moved to a new place or whatever, you probably ought to update this.
So is this also the things that's tied into our life insurance and because I know that I've had that for several years. I pay so much a month for my life, and it shows where I get some of that free, but I pay extra to get.
Exactly. And that is another thing. If you would like to purchase additional life insurance, remember what I said, you're getting $15,000 that's here. If you want to purchase additional life insurance, you can do that through P&D.
I took my retirement a few years ago, and but I'm still actively pastoring. P&B cut my insurance to $5,000, not $15,000.
And the reason, what did they tell you the reason for that was?
Because I took retirement, but I'm still actively pastoring.
Are you still insured in it?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm doing the same things I've done for 40 years.
Yeah.
And so they took $10,000 off my life insurance.
Yeah. Is that just the policy, the way that works? Does anybody else know about that bill?
Yeah.
So if you have retired, let me see if I understand this. If
You're worth less dead.
if you're active,
Your funeral expense obviously will be less.
yeah. If you're active,
Yeah, cremated.
if you're active, your insurance is $15,000. But when you enter into that retirement status, it goes down to $5,000. Is that what we're?
But I am active.
Yes.
The church said
You're
a few years
dual.
ago, we could retire and still actively pastor. And so, in an effort to help with the church, I was punished.
Yes.
I've been retired since 2001. I called them since I moved to Ohio and talked to them, and they said, because I wanted to verify my insurance, they told me I had between 9,000 and 10,000. Does it vary for different people or what?
That's not what I'm understanding. Although,
He could have added so much to it that it's built up.
right. Here's where some of our differences are. And again, I'm not well versed in this. Many of our older pastors came in under a system that has now gone away.
Yeah, the old system.
You always hear there's the old system. See, one thing, the district I moved from, RDS always told us, and I was told this is no longer, but life insurance, there were benefits on the district. And what I mean is, like, if the district paid 90% of all of us together, if we paid our pensions budget to a certain level, life insurance was doubled. If we paid it to 100%, it was double. And there was all of this. And so our district we always paid our pensions and benefits, because there was a tangible. So I asked about that, like, no, that's the old system. It hadn't been that way for, 12 years or 15 years or something. So there are some differences. So that's why sometimes when we hear stories of that, here's what I have. If there's been things that are part of the old system, and now we're talking about, for many of our pastors, you were never part of that old system. This is just the way it is now. Now, Mike?
Well, just help me understand, because I'm on the threshold of a retirement someday. But
Right.
And I'm getting this statement from P&B and saying, at your retirement, you'll get this a month. So is there any, and that's gas money, okay? So it's like, that's it?
That's it.
Yeah. That's all.
That's it, brother.
And here's the other thing that you may not be aware of. You get a reduction if your wife is still alive.
If
I
you
can take
want
care of
her
that.
to receive.
Well, let me ask you this. Pension, people from P&B, they're scheduling where they would come in and do sessions with us. And
And that depends on whether you're under the old system or you're under the new
Right.
system.
That's right.
Right?
The new system wouldn't penalize my wife for that, but the old system does.
would you all be open? Would you like to have someone come in and spend a day? Okay, all right.
For budget paying them to come.
Okay, just a couple more questions. Damon?
This is a side issue, but it relates to the same thing. I know my old district where I came from, they offered life insurance as well. It was a small amount, but I had the impression it was through the church.
You can do that.
But then when I moved here, East Ohio, because they reimbursed me just a little bit of money because I paid up for like 12 months and I wasn't there the whole time. And I mean, it was a small amount, but it was very helpful. It was like $5,000 or $10,000, and it was a small amount. Is that something that East Ohio can look into?
Well, again, you know what, we might have to contact Southwest Indiana to see what they're doing. Because if all they're doing is really kind of brokering through pensions, you know, I think what this district has pretty much just said is, hey, go to pensions and, you know, you're kind of on your own with doing those things.
You know, I had no idea that there was disability insurance with this because I've been paying in 13 years. I pay my own end. The church can't afford it.
Right.
So I've been on paying for 13 years now. And I had no idea that there was disability insurance.
Greg is saying he had no idea that there was a disability insurance through that, so that's good to know. Okay, one more and then we're going to move on.
We are under the older, so we have older pastors here. When my husband turned 62 and we called pensions, they said, take your pension now, you won't get a penny more a month if you wait longer. Just food for thought.
Good.
That's a good
So
idea.
what we're going to try to do, you know, a couple of things with this, and it's kind of, there's a lot of labor involved, but we're going to try to run some reports of finding out who on our district does not have these filled out, okay? And actually what we have to provide pensions is just the way that the technology is. I have to give them every one of our pastors and where they are, and then that's how they run their searches. They can't just run a search, East Ohio pastors, and find this out. That's just not the way it's in the systems. But then we're going to try to find those out, and then, you know, then we need to follow up.
According to the brochure on the P&D website, the cut in life insurance is not determined by whether you're active or not, or by whether or not you're drawing your retirement. It's purely by age.
Yeah, 65, I think.
This actually says 70.5 here.
Okay.
Does it say 70?
Is that the old or the new?
That's on there. It's current.
Okay, so we'll contact and we'll, I don't know if it'll be Don Walters or, you know, which one of the people, but it'd be very helpful and we can get those things in. Okay, one more finance thing. So we've got Compass Initiative, we've got pensions. Michael has something else. We're going to talk about money and then we'll move on to our next session.
Look, it's the X chapter of the kingdom.
I appreciate everybody that's involved in paying your budget on the Funding the Mission website. So as soon as as soon as you post your payment or it's drawn from your bank on the Funding the Mission, it is posted to that percentage that's on there, your circle or whatever on the Funding the Mission. The problem with this system is the Mount Vernon payment.
Yes.
Now, anything that you send to Mount Vernon, you need to contact Mount Vernon for your total. I can't put both on that page. And really, the reason for that is I've been talking with the people in Mount Vernon to join in on this, and the issue is money. We as a district pay the fees for you to be able to make your payment. And but they would have to pay your fee, of course, if you do it and Mount Vernon posts, if they did that kind of thing. And they're running, 5 to 6 districts, I don't know how many, but that's too many churches for them to financially get involved with. So if you have sent any amount of money on a budget to Mount Vernon, you'll need to call Mount Vernon to get that total. And the problem with me, I used to be able to post that onto the Funding the Mission, but I can't do that without messing the whole thing up. It'll just go way off. So what you've posted online is there, but anything else that you've sent in with a paper check to somebody, you'll have to call them to get those totals.
Well, how does it go on?
So,
What's
Mike,
that?
can we send it in, pay it online
Yes.
to Mount Vernon, and then it'll get to Mount Vernon, so we bypass sending it to Mount Vernon?
Oh, you're sending the money to the district and I
Well,
cut a check
if
and
I
send it
just,
to
if
them.
I go online to Funding the Mission and mark Mount Vernon and pay it, so it goes straight to Lenexa,
Yeah.
and do it that way, if I give them my account number, can I bypass and let them pay Mount Vernon?
Yeah, you could do that.
That's how it's done. If you
Right.
go on, you
So-
click on it,
so
but
I
here's
can
the
do
thing.
that, and then it'll be accurate, and Mount Vernon can just wait till they get their money.
Right.
Here's the thing with that though. They're so far behind, my budgets are paid 100% every month. And they're so far behind on this that they're saying I owe like $400 or $500, and that's not true.
Right.
So they need to update sooner than they do because they're not.
Amen.
You know, I'm looking at this and I'm going, I don't know this money. I asked the treasurer, what's going on? Yeah, we're paid all up on 100% on budgets, but they're not updating fast enough.
How many else have that experience?
So, but as soon
Hey, let me see how quick they come around.
if you register and pay online, on the Funding the Mission to, the Mount Vernon budget, that gets posted immediately, the money comes to the district, I pay Mount Vernon, your check, whatever you send me, I send to them, but it's all on the Funding the Mission page.
But you wanna come down and convince my people it's safe to do that, because they're not convinced that's safe to do
That-
that. That's reality.
Yeah.
I'm like, everybody.
Yeah.
So my treasurer can send our education check to you?
Oh, online, when you make your,
I got a treasurer that's been treasurer 28 years. He said, I'll continue to do it until I die or you make me go online.
yeah.
You're done. You're done.
I appreciate the fact that more and more churches are paying their budgets online, and you have to work with your treasurers to do that.
Yeah, it's much simpler. Yeah, it's much simpler.
So if there's any questions on this, always give me a call. But if I can't tell what you sent to Mount Vernon, you'll have to give them a call to find
But what
out.
happens when they give us, they say, well, you paid so much, how do we get it in there then?
Well, you'll have to add the two together, and at the end of the year, when we do our annual reports, then I can bundle it because I'm ending the church year.
Right.
I can put the two together, but right now I can't do
But if
that.
you wait to the end of the year,
Yeah.
Mount Vernon is a month or two behind, and so you'll overpay your educational budget on purpose.
Yep.
So you're saying I can't just trust my treasurer, he said, I've given X amount of dollars, I've sent this to Mount Vernon?
No, because it'll go in your report that you're not paying.
Yep. Yep.
Right. And, it's one of those like what we're talking about. We don't have, we can't change that. It's the reality of it. We wish it was different. I don't know how to make it different. But what Bill said is correct. You just, you almost, that's one budget that try to get it in early, try to take care of it. Because if it's the end, I know one time it showed that because we're paying real time. Everybody understand that? It's not the old assigned numbers that were going in. And we ended up being like $3 short. And we didn't know it. And so it was like 2 years later, we went back in and it was showing that we hadn't paid our budgets. And then you want to talk about a hassle of getting $3 back to it. So, from like 2 or 3 years ago to try to get everything straight in the record. So, again, I wish it was different, but that's what we're dealing with.
Can I ask a question? So if we're paying it on the Funding the Mission, it will be up to date? Is that what we're saying?
It's always up to date, yes.
Praise the Lord. Okay, that's all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You'll give them the bank account number and pay it directly in through the figure.
Then that's right.
Okay, one more short thing with just finances to let you know, and this is a big thank you to you. Last year, you paid the district budget at a level that we haven't seen for many, many years. We were right about 90% paid into our district budget. Michael, just speak to that. Where have we been before? We've been in the 80s, obviously.
Probably 85 to 86, so about 4 or 5% more was paid last year.
Awesome.
And more churches involved in it,
So,
that makes a lot of difference.
you know, thank you for that. Some of the things, and these are just smaller things, but we're trying to make a difference with them. For instance, when we came to district assembly, and part of it is me just kind of getting up to speed. You know, some things we only do once a year, all right? So it takes a couple of years to figure out, hey, what's actually going on here? But we would take up an offering in district assembly, and I'd say, well, what is the, what's the offering do? Well, the offering helps for the expenses of district assembly. And I was looking at the budget, and our district budget, and it's like, well, we have money in there to pay for district assembly. So why are we taking an offering to pay expenses that we've already budgeted? And you know what? We always stay in budget. But I don't know if we take an offering because we've always taken an offering. But it's like, well, you know what? Let's take an offering, but let's do something with it. You know, let's do something for missions. So, you know, I had sent out a letter or sent out an email to the advisory board saying, hey, we're going to take an offering, but, you know, this doesn't need to stay at the district. We want to give this away. And there were some ideas, and the idea came back, you know, we believe in our Korean Holiness Church. And let's help them, let's bless them. So we took the offering and we gave that, you know, to the Korean Holiness Church. This year, we'll take another offering, but we're not going to keep that. That's not going to be, you know, at the district or to pay for your booklets or any of those things. Your district budget pays for those things, okay? And then at camp meeting, kind of the exact same thing, and we're going to get into that a little bit later. But, you know, we've taken an offering at camp meeting. It's like, well, what's the camp meeting offering go for? Well, camp meeting offering helps fund camping. Well, we got a budget line for that. And you know, Michael in the past, Mike Kimball, you know, helping out. I mean, they don't just spend money, you know, and it's like, we're just going to spend money and see. I mean, they've always stayed within the budget and very responsible. So it's like, okay, well, let's do something with our offerings. You know, let's not just take offerings to take offerings, but let's take offering for some mission to do something. And again, I'm going to tell you more about that. If you were at camp meeting, you know some about that. So anyway, because you've paid your district budgets, we don't have to kind of come back and do those type of things to fill in the gaps. You know, we're going to do those things. We're still going to take offerings, but we want to use it in mission to somehow make a difference on our district.
With our offering, you take a district assembly, we've got to go wrestle off in the winter.
Cage match. So, yeah. Okay. All right. Here's another sheet. I'm going to pass this out to you. This is called the Church Excellence Award. Here, let me tell you a little bit about what I want to do here. And you know, every district does things differently. You come to district assembly and, you know, there's some recognitions and there's whatever. And again, every district can do that differently. And, you know, when I came to East Ohio, I saw, okay, we got these different things. And there were some things immediately, I'm like, I want to do this differently. I want to change some stuff. Number one, what I wanted to change is we had different awards that were given out based on your church size. And we want to do away with that completely. Because we're not in competition with each other. We are not. You're not, you know, if your church runs 50, you're not in competition with other churches kind of in there, you know, trying to get something. What we want to do is, if God has blessed and helped our church and we've had a good year, we want to celebrate that at District Assembly. Now, last year, you noticed that we did something different. And we just got to the end of the year and we looked at baptisms and conversions and whatever. And if any church, I'm trying to even think how we figured that. If your baptisms and conversions and members or something like that was equal to 10% of what you reported, you know, we celebrated. Congratulations. Didn't matter what your church size was, or, you know, if we have 3 churches in this category or where it was, we just celebrated. And that's what we want to do. We want to celebrate. Now, this is something different. We're going to continue to do that. And you know what would be wonderful is, you know, if we have 10 churches that qualify for what I just told you, if we had 20 churches that qualify, we're just going to celebrate it because we need to get together and celebrate the good things that God has done, okay? This isn't just trying to get an award. That's not what it's about. It's celebrating that God is moving. Now, this is a little bit different. And again, we're not in competition with each other with this. So it's not like, you're trying to get this and you're working hard and you're hoping somebody else doesn't work hard because you can get it. It's not what this is about. But this is, we're going to call this a Church Excellence Award. And it's these criteria that if you check them off and you get them, we're going to celebrate. Okay? And let me walk down through these and why I picked some of what I did. The first thing is generosity. It's important for your church to be generous. I mean, we preach generosity to our people. We want to model that. You can see your budgets, if you paid your budgets. Now, let me get down to the bottom. Participated in the NTS offering. Okay, participated. Give $1. All right? Participate. You don't have to, we're not setting an amount. It's not $50. It's not $100. Participate. If nothing else, give it up. If there's some reason your church won't do that, let me know. I'll give you the $1 that you can give back. To participate in Nazarene Theological Seminary offering, participate in the Bible College offering. It would be wonderful for our district to say we have 100% participation. Now again, I'm not asking, that some of our churches take up an offering specifically for those things. I know that. Some of us are like, we take up so many offerings, we don't want to take any more. I get that. But can you give $5? Can you give $1? Can you do something? But participate in that. We want to help our seminary, our Bible college. Outreach and evangelism. At least one conversion, at least one baptism, at least one member. This is what we're about, friends. This is what we're about. Amen. And work towards this. We want to see someone. And now, let me talk to you about the conversion, because I had a couple of conversations at the end of the year last year, as people were feeling. If they're, sometimes we think a conversion is someone coming to the front, kneeling at the altar and praying and getting saved. That's wonderful. But you know what, Pastor? If you lead someone to Jesus in McDonald's, amen. Count it. Okay? This is conversions that our church. We're moving into this whole new kind of world of missional, and it's not just about people coming to church. It used to be, the funnel was kind of get them in the church and then get them to the altar and then, whatever. That's kind of going away, and we know that. A lot of our ministry is happening, and our evangelism is happening in places that's not Sunday morning service. And so again, if you lead someone to Christ where you work, if someone from your church comes and tells you a story, and it's like, hey man, this was wonderful in the break room the other day at work, and someone prayed and they got saved, that's the influence of your congregation. Right. All right? And don't poo-poo that. Don't be like, oh, that really doesn't count, because it's the influence of our church, and we ought to celebrate that. Okay? If you've got kids that pray and get saved in a Sunday school class or a vacation Bible school. And, I've had someone say before, well, we have Upwards and we have this big thing and all these kids raise their hands. And I don't know if I should put down, 100 because of these kids. These kids matter, don't they? Amen. They matter. Yes, they do. And we want to celebrate that, okay? So we're not looking at inflating numbers. That's not what this is about. It's not about numbers for numbers' sake. But it's about celebrating and giving God glory for the difference He's making in our church. We ought to do that. Okay? So that's the thing about conversions. So honestly, I'm serious, everyone. There shouldn't be a church on our district that doesn't report a conversion. I mean, think about that. We've got an entire year in the ministries of our church and the outreach and everything of where we're sharing Jesus, and we ought to see a conversion somewhere through the influence of our church body. Amen. At least one baptism. At least one member of profession of faith. Increase in discipleship ministries. Now here's what we mean by discipleship ministries. That's people getting together. This is a very broad thing. This is not a narrow thing where it's got to be a Sunday school class. But discipleship ministries, and this is again kind of a change in understanding. It's very, very broad. If we have people getting together and studying God's Word and being, that's discipleship ministries. It's not just 9 o'clock or 9:30 in a Sunday school class. If you've got groups, some people ask, what do I do with my Wednesday night? We're doing a lot of ministries that don't neatly fall into our reporting. And I know that. And I don't know. I mean, I know I can't change our reporting system on your annual reports. We don't have that authority. I've been kicking around the idea, but I don't want to create more paperwork for you all. But what I think would be wonderful is if we reported, I mean, what are all the people that we're touching? I mean, I talk to some churches and they feel like, we're just small and we're just this. But man, when they start going through and listing all the ways that they minister to people and connect with people, it's not small. It's significant. And how do we count those? So anyway, Discipleship Ministries. Just know that is a open, if you've got kids or adults or teenagers that you're ministering to on Wednesday night, maybe they're not in any kind of other, count them in Discipleship Ministries. And again, the whole reason of this, it's not just to inflate numbers, but we're trying to reflect the impact of your ministries, And let's, that's important. Yes, ma'am.
What do you do with the Compassionate Ministry Center about? How do you report that?
I would say, because that's really, she asked, how do we count like Compassionate Ministry Center? That's kind of an outlier in the sense that it's not everyone. I would say, how do you want to count it? How do you want to measure it? Because what we're trying to do in some of this is like the metrics of what's the impact that we're making? And, and another good thing of how we count is just year to year, it helps us to know, it gets some trends and kind of measuring, what's the impact that we're doing? Again, it's not just numbers for numbers' sake. So it's a good question, Cheryl. I don't know if I have we might need to just sit down and kind of hammer out all the ways that you're touching people, all the ways and
Well, and like that too, like the summary thing for the budgets and stuff, because we're Compassionate Ministry Center, we don't pay budgets, so how do we,
Again, that's probably something we're going to have to ask some questions about. I'm not going to be able to probably give you the best answer.
Thanks for calling me again. But for sure, like last year in the report, the Untitled Church has a compassion ministry, and I just stated it in that summary report that we all offer. So that can be a place for a local church to broadcast what they're doing through any ministry that's not traditionally measured.
That's the last one down here.
Yeah. Right. And there, you can see that. We want you to participate in some kind of local compassionate ministry. Something. Many of you already do that. Whether it's you're helping out, some of it's, we give somebody a gas card that's coming through. That's a compassion ministry. If you want help in, what can we do? Because there's an incredible amount of need that's around us. And we have churches that are successfully and doing a great job in compassionate ministries, and we can partner you with them. They'd be willing to come and, talk to your church. But let's, and what this does, the whole thing about compassionate ministries is, here's one of the things I've noticed, is I go into some churches, and whether we're doing pastoral placements or reviews, sometimes the churches, they've been shrinking, they've been coming down, and what happens is they're feeling like, hey, we got to take care of ourselves. They get inward focused. They'll be like, we're afraid. We don't want to close our church. And what happens is they don't turn outward focused. It's like we have to take care of us. We have to take care of us because we're afraid. And some of them are desperate, but they get more inward focused. And the more inward focus they get, the more damage they're doing to their congregation. So we got to turn this out. And even small churches were able to say, hey, we got to reach out. We got to do some kind of compassion ministry.
I'd like to say something about that. We're probably the smallest church on the district. And we started a food pantry. I just felt God calling us to do that. I want you to know today, we don't pay a dime for the food. God has opened the door that we're getting funds from other people that pay for everything that come into the church. Because the treasurer told me one day about 2 years ago, she said, you know what? We can't continue to pay this money out. We don't have it because we started it, and I just felt this is what God wanted us to do. Out of the blue, a business called me out of North Jackson and said, would you come down and talk to us? And I said, sure. And they said, we want to help fund your food pantry. And that just totally blew us away. And ever since, we've been getting people to give money towards that out of the community. And, we don't always get to have them come into the church and sit down, but there's many times I want you to know that somebody will come to you and say, could you pray with us, or could you sit down and talk with us, or the one lady said, my brother was just killed, and they were coming for food, and they asked for prayer right there on the spot. So there's many things that you can do. If God's in it, He's going to fund it. Because I'm telling you right now, we don't pay a dime towards it now. And it's because of God's glory. It's not because of what we're doing. I just felt we got to do something. We also go through the school system. I built a good relationship with Christine Guinness in North Jackson. We're able to fund 4 families a year for Christmas and Thanksgiving and dinners and everything because God's in it, and I want to be in the school system and I want to do those things. So if God's in it, He's going to do it, and you're just His feet and His hands and His mouth, that's all. And so if God's calling you and it's scary, it's okay, because He'll be there with you. He'll be there with you.
The last ones you see here, begin a new ministry within your church. I don't know what it is, but just do something new. I heard someone talking recently, and I like what they said. They talked about, like, this was their term, but they called it micro changes. Very small things. And sometimes at church we get kind of frustrated because we want to see big changes. That would be kind of like macro. And it's hard to get people to make those big changes. But all of a sudden, if we begin to introduce small, new changes, small things, it just changes the culture. It begins to, kind of filter in and helps people make those bigger changes. Now, for instance, like on the district, we begin to do some new ministries, some new changes, like within your church. Like down the road, if we want to start planting churches, and it'd be like, oh, we couldn't do that. That's such a big thing. But if we get our churches in the mindset of small new things, hey, we can do these new things. So I don't know what your new ministry is, but there's something. I mean, you can start whether it's visiting a nursing home, taking a couple people. Every one of us can do something, but we're trying again to get the culture in of just something new. And understand it this way. It's the freedom. You may start this new ministry, and it may be fine for, maybe it's a summer program. That's fine. This doesn't have to be a ministry that's part of your church till Jesus comes back. That's not the expectation. But seriously, but it might be, in the summertime, you might recognize that there's kids around your church that need ministered to. So you know what? We're going to try to make an effort to reach these kids during the summer. That's a new ministry. And it's for a specific period of time. That's fine. Start a new ministry. You see, NYI, NMI, just helping with those things. And then the last thing is a prayer ministry. What does that look like? It looks like however you want it to be like. But the people in your church should be praying. And we pray together. Maybe you already have that established, okay? It's a designated time. Now let me tell you one of the reasons why I put this together. This isn't just something to do, but I hope that this will be a tool that maybe you go back to your church board and say, you know what? The district is doing something, put it back in here. There's a thing. They would like us to do some things. And it gives you something to take to your leadership or to your church and say, you know what? Our district is talking to us about starting a new ministry. We'd like to do this. We'd like to, so it isn't just your idea, because again, I hear from pastors at times, I bring things and maybe it doesn't fly. Just say it, all the churches in our district are going to try to accomplish something. We had something. Here's a little story from myself. When I started in Napoleon, we didn't have much going for us. We have very, very little going for us. And I went to district assembly, and there was something similar to that. And I looked at that, and I thought, we can never do this. I wish we could, but we could never do this. And then sitting next to me, and if I preached in your church, you probably heard me tell the story of Jim, And Jim was sitting there, and he looked at that, and he's like, Pastor, one of these days, we're going to do that. We're going to do that. I believe God's going to help us. And a few years later, we worked, and we were one of the, we were a small church on our district, and we accomplished this, and we got to go up front. And I still remember, they gave us, these eagles, and then they gave us a plaque. And I got the plaque, and Jim got the eagle. And he just cried, and he celebrated. And then we were able to go back to our congregation and celebrate with them. This is what God has done for us. So again, this isn't an award just to have an award. That's not what this is about. but it's to celebrate that God is doing something. And it's maybe to give you something that you can take back to your church and say, you know what? God wants us to be a generous church. He wants you to be generous, but we're going to be generous as a church. And, if we have 2 churches that accomplish this, praise God. No, here's the thing. Here's what I don't know. It's November. I know that, okay? And what I mean is, we've had from May to November, and this is the first time you've seen this. So we're going to do this year. Woo! Okay, Ryan is. All right? If we can celebrate this, we celebrate it.
I'm going to summon the eagle powers.
But, for others, you're like, man, I don't know if we can do this in 6 months. I don't realize. Well, maybe we can, and we just want to celebrate this, okay? So we're still going to celebrate the other. I just want us to, again, I come back to that. Celebrate, praise God for the powerful things He's doing.
Amen. Are there specifics, or where would we get on what is Honor NYI and Honor SDMI? I know the NMI has criteria, but on the other 2, are there specifics from those groups?
The NYI Honors rating form is in the handbook we hand out at District Assembly every year. So it's in there, and we collect those at, what's it called?
NY Convention.
Leadership Explosion, NY Convention, yeah. Which is
Fred,
in January.
Fred, do we have criteria for Honor Sunday School? Or do we not?
We do.
Okay.
I don't have that.
Okay. Well, you know what? Great question, Bill. We'll get that out. We'll collect all that and
You can also find the NYI on the District NY website. So that's all posted on there as well.
Okay, Nick.
I was going to say, if I remember right, the SDMI honors comes from General Headquarters, I think, doesn't it?
I believe so.
Because
when
I've gone through all the statistics, that automatically shoots out who has honors for SDMI. So.
Okay, let's move into education. What we're doing with some education things. Let me hit a few quickly, and then we're going to have Harold come and talk to us a little bit. Here's number one. As you know, Mount Vernon, or as you might know, Mount Vernon has LEAP seminars. That's what they call them. LEAP, leadership. I don't know, something. But you get emails. If you don't get email, how many do not get emails about LEAP seminars? Okay, everybody is. Deb. Because I get about one every 3 days, it seems like, Here's what we're doing as a district. We will pay for 50% of your LEAP seminar. So if you go, we had several people that were there this last time. We're going to reimburse you 50% of that. We'll pay for that. We're taking some of the money that we have for our team meetings and whatever and funneling it towards there. Now, this is what Mount Vernon tells us. Unfortunately, you can't just pay them half. That's just part of the cooperation with Mount Vernon. But what you have to do is, pay for your seminar, pay to go down there, and then Michael's in the back. Michael, we'll get a list of who attended, and then we'll send you a check back for that, okay? So I wish that you could just pay, if it's $50, you could just pay the $25, and then but they've told us that's the way they want to do it, okay? So that's what we have to do. A couple other things about LEAP seminars, just so you know. We have tried to work with Mount Vernon as far as like the dates of them, because like last year, it worked so that we have planned in our calendar meeting our team days, and then the LEAP seminar was the same week or the week before. They're right on top of each other. And so I asked Mount Vernon, as we were scheduling this year, when do you have your LEAP seminars planned? We'll schedule around that. Well, unfortunately, it's just like at your church. Mike Williams is responsible for this. And Mike doesn't have these things scheduled out for the next, 3 years. He's always kind of scouring for presenters and these type of things. He's got to contact them. When can they go? It's no different than when you schedule stuff at your church. So we're trying to set our schedule, our district calendar. We have to do that in like April, okay? And we're asking them next March or April, when are you going to do LEAP seminar? And he's saying, I don't know. I'm not even sure who we're going to have, let alone when. So just kind of know that's some of the challenges. So if you look, sometimes like, why are these things right on top of each other? I wish we could plan those things, but it is what it is in some way. But we want to take advantage, and here's my little thing about geography. Some of you have heard me talk about it. We are blessed when it comes to geography. Mount Vernon, even for the far ends of our district, is not that far away. If you were I was talking to someone who was on the Point Loma region, and they're like, you know how far Point Loma is from us? 10 hours. So when they're doing things, either we fly there, we can't participate. If you're on the Tribeca region, many of the other regions, it is a long, long ways away. So I'm just going to say, if you complain or whine a little bit about having to drive, 2.5 hours to Mount Vernon, that didn't go a long ways with me. Up in Napoleon, we were, 2 hours and 45 minutes from Mount Vernon. And you know what? I felt blessed. I mean, we can get there. It is possible that you can get to the LEAP seminars or other things they're doing, participate, and get home. You don't have to spend the night in a motel. We're blessed. And take advantage of these things. We just had one, was it a couple weeks ago? And it was good. They're bringing in good speakers. We're going to take advantage of that. And we want to partner with that and help you be there. If you don't have the money, if it's money that's holding you back, and you say, I can't go because I don't have the, $25, because you talk to me and we'll get you scholarshiped in. Mike Williams has even told me, I don't want any of your pastors to not be able to go to a LEAP seminar because they can't afford it. You talk to me. So we will get you there. There's 2 of them a year. And again, I can't say it enough. But we want to take advantage of that. That's part of our strategy for continuing education credits and everything. We can't do everything here on the district. Last year we had Will Mancini. Do you know how much it is to get Will Mancini to come for a day? $5,000.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, we're never going to be able, and he wrote Church Unique and some of this, we'll never be able to afford to bring him to our district. But together we're lucky because as a region they can bring him to Mount Vernon and we can do those things. So we want to take advantage of that. So that's our LEAP seminars. Harold, why don't you come and talk to us about our, I'm not sure what to call them now.
They're still lifelong.
Okay, lifelong term. Everett?
I got a question. I just received a letter in the mail about Palcon, and I noticed that Mount Vernon was not listed. Am I missing something?
The things that they're doing with Palcon is on a rotation of where every year 2 of the regions do Palcon. Okay, so I think the first year might be Southern and Eastern. We're on the back end of that. So every summer, 2 regions, and when I say regions, that's educational regions. We're the last ones. So no, Palcon will not be for like 3 years for us.
We did it last year.
Right. So I think we're that last region.
The bad thing about Mount Vernon is for bivocational pastors is we can't go. It's that simple, And I talked to Mike about it. Mike, as a matter of fact, came up when he found out I had surgery. And he came up and seen me at the hospital. We talked about that a little bit. I asked him if there's anything they can do to plan it on a weekend, to help bivocational people out. And he said he would look into it, but that's what's tough when you got to work because your church can't pay,
Right.
So that's the tough.
I had mentioned to him once, and I don't know if some of these people, because of
Right.
they own their material,
Right.
they're talking about, can we put it on video,
That
get
would
it
be
loaded
awesome,
up, or tape it and
when you did Dr. Spalding's, that was awesome. I couldn't be there, but
Right.
to be able to go to YouTube and do that, to
Right.
watch that was awesome. It was great.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
Just want to bring you up to date. There have been many changes since the last time I talked with you in May. Everything that's in this brochure is directly downloaded from the website. So I just thought it would be good for you guys and gals to have it all in black and white so you don't have to go from one to the other. The underlining in this first part, red underlining, is also on the website. This is a drastic change. I just want to bring your attention to it. You're aware of the 20. If you'll open up the second flap, It starts an up-to-date report on his or her lifelong learning program will be used in the church or pastoral review process and in the process of calling a pastor. That sounds pretty threatening, doesn't it? That's not the motive. Let's look at it from a positive perspective. Pastor Dave meets with a church. They have a bivocational pastor. He makes them aware of the fact that the general church wants him to still achieve 20 hours of learning. They need to know that. They may need to set money aside for it, or they just maybe need to know, cut him some slack. He needs, so you understand, there is a positive way that we need to look forward to that. Then they have built in, the old language said if one of us did not complete 20 hours in 2 consecutive years, the old language says you must have a conversation with the board member. This is changed, and you're going to see part of it is because this is switched to totally individual reporting, so you don't need me. The only thing I do is come up with the codes, all right? But here's my point. The responsibility for monitoring and all of that has been switched to the Board of Ministerial Studies. Okay, and so you need to, so I want to continue here where it says failure to complete these requirements for more than 2 consecutive years shall result in the ordained minister being required to meet with the District Ministerial Studies Board. Now this is one thing that I've spoken with Tracy concerning, and it says here at their regular meeting time. We have a dilemma, and we're going to work on fixing it. When you report your lifelong learning hours on your pastor's report, it is from May 1st through April 31st, last day. Okay. The problem is our regular meeting of the ministerial education is in March. So I just spoke briefly to Tracy, and we will get together as the ministerial studies board. What we will probably end up doing is we will just wait until after your report, and then we will plan after May 1st, even though it's a special and not a regular meeting. I think we feel that it's more fair to everybody to talk to you about what you've done or not done from May to April, as opposed to calling you in on March and saying you got to get this done. The other thing you need to understand as we go through this, once again, the purpose of the Ministerial Studies Board is to do exactly what Pastor Dave was sharing, is that to not call you into account. We are not the lifelong learning hours popo. That's not our job. We are there to help you and say, look, here are the things that you can do. Here's the, just for example, Embracing Exile. It's 125 pages. Read the book. You can get what for every 75 pages you read, and we'll talk about that. There are all right, so let me stop here and shift focus. So you see on that second flap, there is a new role for Ministerial Studies Board and a new accountability to Ministerial Studies Board. Got that? Now, let's go over to the guidelines. And the ones I've highlighted for you are, I think, the ones that can speak to you right now. Number 1, read 75 pages, get 2 hours credit. Now, it gets better. Read 75 pages, get 2 hours credit, and meet with another group of pastors, and you get the 2 hours credit for every 75 pages of the book, and every minute you guys met. That's possible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to number 5. Number 5.
Did you say you get 2 hours credit for every minute you meet with them?
No.
Well,
You get 1 minute credit for every minute you make.
Okay, well, we're making sure.
I'm old, but I'm not that old. Yeah.
Are there any directives on the style type of book? I know when you take lifelong learning, you can explore other things that might not be theological. Are the books needing to be theological?
Want you to go, Tracy, that question is answered on the back where it says 6 best practices for lifelong learning.
Yeah.
Diversify, diversify, diversify. Okay, and to be honest, in the past, I've had pastors that took Spanish classes. We turned them in, they got credit for them. So does that help you? And the other thing, the restriction, the last time it said district approved reading. No. Now, I'm not talking about John Grisham, or we're not talking about that guy, okay? So, all right. Because you're gonna have to, when you fill out the form, there are going to be criteria in that template that you have to fill out, and there's going to be criteria there. And you give it, what's it, chainsaw certification.
Yes.
No, don't let, I never did get paperwork, but you can get bus driver, the hours you spent to be certified as a bus driver.
Okay, that's not true, because I had to be certified again, and I had to go through like 30 hours of certification, and you know what Kansas City told me? No.
Because it was a recertification.
Well, you got to be recertified every 6 years to drive school.
Okay, I understand that, but the educational experience and the information that you got credit for, they will do that one time. Do you get the idea? Do you understand why it wasn't? You use that terrible phrase,
Yeah, recertified. Well,
Yeah.
well, why lie? You know, I mean, you have to be
Well,
certified
when
for
you
that
don't
every-
lie,
because
you don't get it.
Here's the deal. Here's the thing. Do you realize how many laws have changed every year?
Irrelevant.
You see that?
I'll give you another example. Of
That's
something.
irrelevant.
Yeah, well, no, I'll give you another example.
That's irrelevant.
I haven't seen you, but one of our pastors has a certification, a nursing home administrating certification. We got to turn that in the first time, and he got credit for it. But then when he needed to be recertified, they're not going to count that again. Is that helping you there? Yeah.
No.
I read a lot of nonfiction, and every history and biography I have read and turned in has been accepted.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Read.
So do you understand what we're saying? You can do this, a bivocational, you can read 125
Oh, yeah.
pages
I already
of
did the
Embracing
book.
Exile.
I've already done it.
Okay, let me finish here real quick. I don't want to take any more time. Number 5. Number 5, webinars. And here's what they're asking you to do, and I don't think that's, don't watch it for an hour and then take an hour credit. Watch it in its entirety. Get the full benefit. That's all they're saying here. Do you get that? All right, let's go to the number 6. If you go to whether it's secular or sponsored by them, you only give credit for the hours of instruction. Makes sense, okay? And then the only other thing that I skipped down to number 8. Number 8 is if you go on a missions trip, you are allowed to report 50%. Yeah.
What's the definition of a mission trip? What if you go in your community and do work within your community? Is that a mission trip?
I'm just going to relate to you the conversation I had with Diane Friend when I had one of my pastors. We needed to turn in the information. She was very clear that she was assuming it was
An international mission.
Yeah.
or a district, an international, or if it was like if a group went to Texas right now. and did something there, the actual, and then they could get credit for that kind of thing. Does that help in terms of, she sort of narrowed the focus to mean something outside your local community. Because she would consider missions as, that would be part of your local community ministry and not a, quote, working witness. So I guess part of it is geographically defined, if that makes sense for everybody. But if you have any doubts, call her. Just call her. Yeah.
Going back to 5 for 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Take that Compass webinar that I attended. I registered, did all the stuff. The day of the webinar, there was a glitch. It wouldn't log me in, so I had to listen. This says active participant. Am I listening? Am I active?
Yes. Yes. I don't want you, and this, you need to understand, if you go on YouTube and listen to Brother Chan, Francis, yeah, if you would listen to him and listen to the entire message, you're being an active participant. You're actively listening to it. What's not fair, and this is what you're talking about, you're turning it on, and it's playing, and you're sitting around doing something else. No, come on, we all do it. You understand, I don't need to explain that. An active participant means that is all you're focusing on for the information. It's not playing in the background and you get to count it. Yes?
Just a couple to clarify the reading things. Holiness Today, number one question. And some go through a reading schedule regimen, read your Bible in a year.
That won't count.
They don't have the Bible? Well, that...
No, wait.
I just wanted to know, you know.
No, I'll tell you, that is covered. Look with me. Look with me in the middle column. Middle column, second paragraph. However, the daily practice of ministry, such as pastoral care or sermon preparation, viewing an informative TV program, or listening to a presentation at a community gathering, normally would not qualify. That's part of our regular pastoral duties. Okay?
Well, like our church.
Well, how about Holiness Today? Yes, no?
This is interesting. I would do it. I don't know how you would figure the hours. I'd give myself an hour. Because here's the other thing. I put it in here in the past, reading the entire issue of Grace and Peace was worth, but on the new website, that's not there. But if you look on what qualifies as lifelong learning, it talks about professional, and let me see here, we'll find it real quick, professional journals. That would be classified as a professional journal. So would leadership. Okay.
No.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Well, our church subscribes to Right Now Media, which has a lot of seminars on it. And how do you report those? I mean, there'd be like a webinar and essentially going to a conference.
Well, you just simply go, log in, and give them the information.
Oh, okay. You know, maybe
the only thing you'll need to do
maybe
is...
you and I need to sit down because I can't log in because I lost my password.
Now see, my password is saved.
Yeah, I know.
You're going to... You have an unsaved password. Okay.
Is yours saved?
My radio staff computer broke down, I think. I don't know.
It may have, you know how your computer is tied to your bank account and that kind of stuff. You may have to do that. You may have to do that. Okay, I'm done except for the last thing. You got to report it. I can't do it for you yet. I miss those days. I loved it. I loved being able to do that. No, I really did, because it kept me in contact with you guys. But you've got to do this, and the only other thing that I have to share with you, it's not on the website, but it is out there. December 31st, you gotta be in the system. If you're not, even if you've not earned or done any credit, please get in the system. Okay, I really don't have anything else unless there's some more questions. Yeah.
Do you have to get in every year, or once
No.
you become?
Once you're in, you're in. The only thing that's sort of confusing, when you get to the site, it always tells you to sign in, and you want to push that, but you don't. You need to go up to the top where, once you've created your account, don't sign in, log in. If you sign in, it's going to give you the screen that starts all over again. Don't do that. Make sure you go up to the top where it says log in, and you should be. Have you been doing that? Oh, okay.
Okay, one more thing along with this, Matt has. One more just comment with the lifelong learning, and then we've got some more things to introduce to you.
Thank you, guys.
Something just, I just went to Kansas City, so they shared this with me about lifelong learning hours. When you go on, make it a daily practice that as soon as you do lifelong learning hours, log in, track it. Just don't wait, and so that way you don't forget your password, Mike. Because you have to use the password so often, because I know how much you learn stuff, right?
I fit that in between Candy Crush.
You're not a millennial, man. You're not a millennial.
And then one other thing, if you are doing your own self, if you're putting this in, like say you're reading a book and things like that, and it says about and description, please make sure that you write a little bit of a description of what it is, because if you do not write a decent description like you actually learned something, Kansas City will look at it and say, they didn't learn anything. So make sure you put maybe a 2 to 3 sentence synopsis about what you learned. That is very important to make sure you put that on every record that you have. Okay? So that's all I want to make sure that.
Okay, along with this, one thing, even the questions that we're asking, what I appreciate about all of this is, again, it comes back to a culture. We have a culture in our district that this is who we want to be. We want to be pastors that are professional, that are learning, that are moving forward. And again, I just go back to culture. It's something that we want to do and that we want to. It isn't something that me, as the district superintendent, has to come around with a hammer and you gotta. That's not what we want to do. This is just who we are. And as pastors, we need to be growing. We all know that our culture is changing, everything, and we have to be doing this. What I'd love to see is, Harold was talking about, after 2 years, we don't want to have those meetings. Right. And we don't want to have them because there's no one we need to talk to. Because all of us are just doing those things. Now, on top of that, in saying that, let me tell you something I'm very excited about, because we want to do everything we can to help and partner with you. Last year at camp meeting, I told you we took up an offering, and what we told everyone coming to camp meeting is what we're giving to is for our pastors. Seminary, Nazarene Theological Seminary, has a program, I don't know what to call it. It's called the Center for Pastoral Leadership. It's an online center, okay? It has webinars, it has information, it has an incredible amount of information. And the cost of it is $99, and I'm like, we have 70 churches. We need $7,000. And if you were there at camp meeting, you heard me give my presentation, every night. We need $7,000 because we want to give every one of our pastors. We believe in our pastors. So on the last Sunday night, we needed, Michael, how much was it?
We needed 2,000, and we got, what was it?
2005?
2005.
Yeah. So, now get this. Here's the one, because I'm like, all right, we're going to be able to have 70 of these subscriptions, and we're going to give them all to you. So then we called the seminary, and they said, oh, well, we actually offer a volume discount. And so if you buy this many, you get it at this price. If you buy this many, you get it at this price. So if we purchased 100, subscriptions to the CPO, we got them at $65 a piece.
Oh, yeah.
So we were able to buy 100 subscriptions for $6,500.
More donuts.
Where we thought, yeah, we thought it was going to take 7,000 to buy, 70. So here's the way this works. Okay, if every one of our pastors is going to receive this, and I'm going to be around after we're done, and I can log you in and get you. I went through mine. We've been waiting for this meeting to get this information. Yesterday I went through and logged in and got mine. We can help you. I'll be able to sign, and then you'll get an email that gives you the information to go in and log in. But we'll get you started today. Now, next question. How many of you already have one of these?
I just paid for it.
Okay. Here's what we're going to do with that. Is you'll be able to be on top of that. Okay. So no, let me rephrase that. We have these 100 codes, and we do not have an expiration date on our codes. All right. So, like, I know one of our pastors, theirs is coming up January 1st, right around there. So when their one currently is up, then we can get his. So it's not like these codes, you have to get them today and they're going to start today. So like Bill or any of you that already have this, when yours is expired, then let us know, and then we'll give you the code right on top of that. Or if you want, what I'm not sure about is if you want to contact the seminary, if you just got yours.
Just did it in September at the preacher's conference.
Okay, so if you would be able to say, hey, my district has this, would I be able to get a refund or whatever? You can, otherwise, what we'll do is on the back end of your other one, we have a code, for you that you can do that. A couple of the advantages of it is, one is you get a free year of Office 365 that's included in that. So, you'll have that's there. So we'll get you. Now, here's the deal with this: is it's not the district office that's doing this. It's the generosity of our district parishioners. You get what I'm saying? Their offerings pay for this. We're going to invest in you as pastors and give this to you. We want you to invest in yourself. Take advantage of it. We're going to get reports, and what I mean by that, we can log in and say, we gave Lee this, and here, did he use it? And if you're not going to use it, we're not going to pay for you next year. All right? Now, what I'd like to do, if you use it and you're participating and you're whatever, I'd like for this to be a yearly thing that we are just ongoing. Like I told you, you're generous in your district budgets, and this is just part of our strategy to help with education and all of these things. I was at a seminary recently. I think there's only 4 or 5 districts that are doing this, and we're one of them. And because we believe in you as pastors, but we want you to invest in yourself. We're not just going to give this to you, and then you don't do anything with it. We'll give it to somebody else. Now, pastors, we have this for you. Because we were able to get 100 codes, we have codes that we can use for if you have associate pastors. We want to help them. Okay? We have some retired pastors who are actively involved, who want to be part of this. We want to help them. Okay? We want to be generous in this. We can't give them to just anyone and everything. We don't have 200. But we have an extra roughly 30 codes that we're able. And one other thing, like Ryan and Renee as co-pastors, they should each have one of these, okay? And that way they're able to track, Ryan's account. These things will go into his lifelong learning credits and everything. And then you'll be able to use the Office 365, and the same for you, Renee. So any of our churches that have co-pastors will be able to do that.
Also, just so you know, your Office 365 subscription that comes with it, you get 5 machines. Yeah. And the Office 365 is worth it just because that's normally $100. So, just so you know.
So does it expire too?
Like Office 365?
Yes. Will it
Yes.
expire at the year?
That's an annual, right. Tracy?
Do we, so for those unpaid associates and so forth who might want to jump in on this, do we just send a request and once you know how many you have available, and then would the churches pay the $65 or whatever for them?
It's already paid, isn't it?
It's already, but if I understand what Tracy's saying, if there's a church that has someone that maybe would not be covered under this umbrella, but would like to take advantage of it, can we do that? Let me work on that, okay? Because what we would need to do then is expand out of that 100.
But we just send you the request, and then when you know you have
Yes.
enough codes to share with those who are giving you extra, so the sooner the better to get on that list.
Right.
That we want our associates or unpaid staff or
Right.
unpaid helpers.
So it's going to take us a little bit of effort to kind of coordinate, some of the paperwork. For instance, if Greg doesn't have it, we'll get him signed in. Then we have some people that are not here today. And then we have some people, the ones that raise their hands, that we want to reserve it for you. So down the road, when yours is up, we want to make sure that we have a code. So, we've got just some, logistics of keeping that. But again, we're very excited about that. And we want you to use that. That'll be another great opportunity to do that. So that's CPL. And again, I've got my computer. I know it'll take some time. We'll probably have a line or whatever. But if you want, I can get you logged in and get your stuff started today. When I'm going to need just your name and your email, and we can get that worked out. Okay, that's our CPL, the Center of Pastoral Leadership.
If not today, if we don't do it today, you're going to send it out.
What you'll have to do, here's what I need you to do. If you're not going to do this today, what you will need to do is connect in with Beth. Beth will have access to this. And the two key things that we need your name, obviously, and then we need your email address of where, and you should connect it, use the email address that you're using for your lifelong learning credits, okay? Don't use a Gmail here and a Yahoo there or something like that, okay? But when you get that to Beth, then then we can turn that around and get that back to you. Then you'll get an email from the CPO. Okay. One more kind of major change thing that we're adding is, and this has to do with education, but let me show you this book. The person's name is Robert Schnees. Robert Schnees is a bishop in the United Methodist Church in Missouri. And Matt nodded his head, and Matt nodded his head. Matt used to be in Kansas City and had worked some with him. But one of the things, we brought him in to our district superintendents, our leadership training, and he talked about, one of the things he talked about was districts, and I've learned this just in 2 years, districts are very different than churches. What I thought I understood about districts, I didn't understand anything. A district is not just like a big church. It is significantly different in the way you have to lead and what you're trying to do and how we're trying to help churches. It's different. It is altogether different. And there's not much out there written about how do districts, organize themselves, function, what do they provide to churches to ultimately help churches, because that's what this is about. Why is the district here? To pour into churches. And Schnees is one of the few people that has written things about how and what should districts do to try to impact their churches in that area. So he wrote this book called 7 Levers. And by levers, it's the whole thing of, you put effort in here and it multiplies the result. It's like sticking a lever underneath something and pushing down, and we all know that. We get that back from high school science and whatever. It's a lever. Now he also has, here's my little rabbit trail. He has another book specifically written for churches, and it's 5 something. Okay, just look up his name. It's good. 5 something for healthy churches, or for fruitful
practices.
Say that again, Matt.
5 fruitful practices for healthy churches.
5 fruitful practices for healthy churches. And then he even has things written about each of those practices. So if you're looking for your church for something, you're like, what is and I don't want to call these a program, because it's more about this is the type of church we should do. These are the type of practices and things healthy churches do. And you can get in there and begin to take this. But anyway, one of the things that we can start very quickly and that I want to do is he calls it peer-to-peer learning. And I'm going to do what you're not supposed to do as a leader. I'm going to read to you, all right? But let me read some of this. I buy into this. And some of our districts have got on board with this. And they're seeing great results. Pastors are loving this, and it's effective. So let me read a little bit of this to you. Developing a strategy for clergy peer learning is the second lever. Leading a congregation is a unique calling requiring relational, organizational, supervisory, financial, marketing, and business skills, as well as theological training, spiritual grounding, and the ability to pray, preach, counsel, teach, and mobilize people. In other words, we have to do everything, and we know that. Congregations need someone not only to love them, but also to lead them. With the rapidly changing context in which we serve, learning these skills and deepening these gifts requires lifelong learning. That's what we've been talking about. Clergy, here's the key sentence in this whole thing. Clergy learn best from other clergy. The challenge for a conference is how to draw clergy into the optimal setting for learning leadership and deepening the practices that lead churches to expand their ministry and reach more people for the purposes of Christ. There's a paragraph that goes through research has shown and studies have been done that show that peer-to-peer learning is much more effective than this. The old style of lectures or seminars, no, those have their place, but the most effective tool is peer-to-peer learning. Let me read you another paragraph. A comprehensive study by Austin Presbyterian Seminary, funded by the Lilly Endowment, researched whether peer-to-peer group involvement makes a difference in clergy leadership and how peer learning affects the congregations that clergy serve. Pastors who regularly participate in peer learning are more likely to promote a culture of involvement that actively assimilates newcomers and fully involves members. In addition, those pastors more actively lead their congregation to devote effort to community service and youth ministry. Clergy peer learning changes pastors and changes the churches they serve. Here's another phrase. It says, nothing influences clergy leadership more than a supportive learning community of other pastors. It even says, get this, a mediocre clergy peer learning group shapes pastoral behaviors and identity more than the best workshops, lectures, or books. Did you get that?
Yeah.
Mediocre peer-to-peer groups are better than excellent workshops. So, hold on, let me read one more paragraph. Clergy peer learning provides the most advantageous setting when it has focus, consistency, quality, and healthy leadership. A purposeful peer learning system fundamentally shifts how we learn the practice of ministry. We know this works. Now here's what these are about. You know, we all understand peer-to-peer is us. I call this small groups for pastors. I'd like to get these up and rolling by January. What this would look like going forward is we would have a kind of a fall semester. We'd have a spring semester. Okay, take the summers off. It is not going to be organized by geography. So this is not a group for your zone. What we're going to do, again, I go back to small groups for pastors. We're going to take advantage of our geography. And you're going to be able to sign up for a group that you want to be part of. And you may have pastors from the far ends of the district. And just like groups, you're going to have to figure out where are we going to meet, when are we going to meet. We're going to have groups that meet on Saturdays. We'll have groups that meet on whenever. It's going to work. You know, we'll have leaders. What these will focus on, this is very, very important. These are not academic groups. And what I mean by that, let me see if I can find what he says here. Let me see if I can find this. Because what we are going to study, I probably should have underlined this. What we study are books and things that are mission-oriented and have a practical edge to them. Okay, so we're not going to do Brueggemann. All right? We're not doing Boltmon. This is not an academic type of a thing where we're going to pick a classroom type book and just talk theology. This is going to be missional. It's going to be practical. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're working about. Now, those theology, of course, will come into it. We know that. But it is not just a pure academic exercise. This is going to have definitely a practical edge to it. And, we're going to have to weed that out in the sense that our leaders, different groups, to start off, I'm not sure we're going to have this is the district book that everybody's studying. We may have different, our leaders, this one may be doing, we're going to do the 5 fruitful practices, or another one, whatever. You'd sign up maybe for what you want to do. But again, I just emphasize, it's missional, it's practical. We might need to do some groups that are online, kind of a go-to-meeting type style, if that works. We're going to try to make these work. Here's another thing. It's not mandatory. We're not going to make people be part of these. So if you want to be part of them, we want you to be part of them, and we encourage them. But we're not going to have any grumpy people that come into this kicking and screaming. Okay? So the good news for you, if you're part of the group, you're not going to have someone sitting there like this. The only reason I'm here is because the district made me. And whatever. It's just like, those, you've got them in your churches, you know what I'm talking about. And we want people that want to be part of this. If you don't want to be part of it, I think that says more about you than it does what we're trying to do. But we're trying to, again, we're trying to connect in. I know it's going to take effort to be part of these. They're going to meet once a month. So, our spring semester, January, February, March, April, we're going to have 4 months. They would meet once a month. So you're going to have 4 times. And we want you to be together. And like I said, I know some of them might have to be online. Leaders, it's going to be kind of mentoring. We'll probably change up leaders, but I want to tell you probably the thing I'm looking for, the absolute most is attitude. We need leaders that are going to be positive. We want leaders that are pouring into others, that are the reason they're doing this is because they want to see others grow, not because I want to be a leader. So we need people who are going to pour into that. These aren't gripe sessions, they're not complaint sessions. We're going to build each other up.
You were saying that, Dawn and I have been talking about this for a long time. And because we don't have a church service, because we're a Compassionate Ministries Center, I look on Amazon a lot for books. So, how do I get people to ask about Jesus, not just what we do? And because they come every Wednesday to get their produce, to get clothing, well, we just use this book. Well, I just read this book, and we just implemented this within the last couple of months, and I'd love to share with people it's called A Meal with Jesus, Discovering Grace. We've had 2 dinners, and we've had 38 people out of our community. Not homeless people, not hungry people, but people that have been in our church every Wednesday picking up produce for 3 years. And I mean, even though we've never mentioned the Word of God, tried to, push Jesus, I don't want to say push Jesus, but, they're unchurched. And these people are like, when's the next meal? When's the next meal? And they're all bringing to it. So, I mean, that's a great thing that it's working for us. It may not work for them, but maybe somebody, maybe there's something that we can all use to help.
Let me talk a little bit more about this, and the way we start these, we'll be learning every time we do a semester. It's just like when you start Sunday school classes or groups in your church. You get them started, and then you learn as you go along, but you've got to adapt. I think how we're going to start this is, for instance, if we have 8 groups, we're going to cap them at a certain level of people, like it's 10. So we're not going to have one group that has 20 people, okay? Right. We're going to cap them, and you're going to need to sign up. So just know that there's going to be a cap. So when we release, and again, I'm not exactly sure how we're going to get the word out to everyone, but if there's a group you want to be in, you better sign up quick to get into it. Because if it's full, then you're going to have to go to choice number 2, choice number 3, okay? of how we do that. Some groups we may repeat into another semester, other things we may do, new, that we're gonna learn. But we're not gonna, so if you're a leader and you're like, well, what if I only end up with 2 or 3 people? Well, I hope that doesn't happen, because again, we're not gonna let certain groups grow to, 20 or 25 or something like that. Okay.
Well, it's just, I appreciate the district's effort there. Every Monday morning, my richest time during the week is a 9 o'clock meeting in a coffee shop in our area with Presbyterian, Pentecostal, United Methodist, and it's Bible study. The week before we pass out a portion of scripture, we come back that next week, we spend a few times reading it together, and then we just sit and talk about it. And it's just, we've been doing it for like 10 years. And it's a rich experience, and I live for that Monday morning, just to be with some pastors and peers and just sharing with one another. And it's been very helpful during some crisis in some churches in our area. So
Right.
it's important.
So as the district, we're trying to look at some different purposes. So we're providing you with the CPL, these peer-to-peer learning groups, the LEAP seminars. We're trying to help you with your professional edge, learning, all of that. That is our strategy for that. So the peer-to-peer groups are very important. The CPL, allowing you to do that, partnering with Mount Vernon, that's part of our what we would call our training. In the past, it was these days. Now, what I don't know what we're going to do, these days are not necessarily going to go away. I don't know what we're going to do with them. I want them to have purpose. If you're going to spend your time and your effort to come to this, we want it to have purpose and to help in some way. It's always good to be together, but I don't know what these. Again, we want them to have intention. Last year, we used these kind of in 3 ways, and you might have heard me say we had Dr. Spalding. That was more of the kind of theological training. We did a peer-to-peer learning where it was more practical, and then we did a session with Doug Van Ness about our personal devotion life. So that was more of a personal thing. So again, we tried to have focus in each one of those. Theological training, practical training, personal development. I'm not sure, we don't want these times to go away. I'm just not sure how we're going to use them and leverage them in the most, okay? But that's kind of our training aspect, the strategy for that. Now, let me go on to the, one more thing, and Janet, you pass. Yeah. Well, hold on to those for just a second, okay? Because let me talk to it, and then okay. So some of our other events, we're trying to evaluate, we're trying to have intention with the things that we're doing. I wish I had a real catchy word, this. I don't. So maybe we can develop that, or you can help me with that, talk to me later. But there's that training, our training that I just talked about. That's an important part that the district wants to partner with you and help you. Okay, that's kind of our strategy there. Another thing that we need to do is we come together, and it's partly the good thing that we have as a district is we need to come together for fellowship, for koinonia, to be together. That's very, very important that we're together. And we have some events that we do those things. Michael, again, is in the back. Michael has coordinated our breakaway for a lot of years. It's a time that you can come and just work together. It is a breakaway. He's actually looking into another venue for that, another opportunity rather than Cedar Lakes. But the whole purpose of that is we're together, we worship, but we're together. For some, it's a time to just renew their bodies and their hearts. What about our ministers and mates, or our pastor and spouse retreat? What's the purpose of that? What do we do? What's the focus of it? What should be the focus of it? Janet is now working with our events. She's going to be coordinating our events and doing that. And one thing about Janet is nothing really ever gets stale under her feet. I mean, things are moving and whatever. And we've been talking about this for a couple of years. Now, one of the things about the retreat is you really need about a year of working with locations and things, to get change. I mean, if you don't have something in place about a year in advance, it's going to be what it was before. We've been at Sugar Creek for a long, long time, and it's a beautiful facility. My personal feeling is February is a horrible time to go to Sugar Creek. You know, it's cold, the weather's not great, a lot of stuff's not open. Now this year, we're pushing it back a month. We're at the 1st of March. So maybe we'll have a little bit better weather. But here's some of the things that we're talking about. And I'm going to pass out a sheet in just a minute, and I want your input on it. But we have been talking about some different venues. And what I think personally would be fun is to have a rotation of venues where we're not at the same place. But, you know, maybe we're at Sugar Creek one year, we're at another location year 2, we're at another location year 3, maybe 4, and we kind of rotate. We've got some venues down. I would like to know whether or not you are interested in those venues. Here's some of the ones that I wrote down. Sugar Creek, which we've been there. Mohican, the state park. Salt Fork is a state park. Ogilvy, over in Wheeling. And then one district on our region went to Cleveland. And they stayed at an Embassy Suites, but they had all of the city. You know, people were able to take advantage of just the different things to do in the city. So it wasn't necessarily a rural retreat, but it was one. And they, you know, the pastors loved it. They were like, man, I never get to, you know, downtown Cleveland or whatever, and they took advantage of the shopping. It's a different thing. Here's something else. So I'd like to know, and it rates 1 through 5. Would you be interested in these places or not? And then there's a place other, because you may know some places we haven't found and we'd like to investigate. But again, we're trying to keep in mind the drive time to get to these places and you know where they are. Okay, number 2, the second thing is the location. There's a place for you to mark. Do you like the idea of a rotation of the locations? Would you like to just have the retreat in the same place every year? Would you like to go somewhere and maybe be there, you know, 3, 4, 5 years in a row and then switch to another location, you know, something like that? Tell us what you like. Now, please understand, there's different opinions. We all know. Opinions are like belly buttons. Everybody's got one. And, you know, you may not get your way in some of this, but we're going to do the best we can. Okay, third thing I want you to write down is the date. When would you like to have the retreat? And there's a lot of things that play into this. Like we in the past, we've had our retreat in the winter. Let me tell you one of the reasons, I don't know if you know this or not, but one of the reasons the district chose February to do this. It's cheaper. Because who wants to be in Sugar Creek in the winter? So they give us reduced rates because we go that time. All right? So maybe if you're like, man, we'd like to go during this time. Well, that's fine. But just understand, if we go in a more peak time, we're probably going to pay more. So,
And aren't there less conflicts there too?
Yes, exactly. But if we're a year out, I think that we'd be able...
I meant with our schedules.
Sure, yeah. So understand those things. Would you like to do it in the winter, in the spring, or in the fall? For instance, if we moved it to the fall, we could switch breakaway to another thing. But we're just looking to do, you know, what is most beneficial. Now this isn't important. Everyone pay attention to this, because here, this would be a major shift. The days of the week. We normally do our retreat, you know, Tuesday night, Wednesday, and we're done Thursday morning. Some districts start Thursday night, Friday, leave on Saturday. And that way for people, you only have to take one day off work rather than, you know, Wednesday, Thursday. Some districts are doing this. Now, I've been hesitant, but I'm open to what you all think. They do the weekend, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. We have a couple of districts on our region, Eastern Kentucky and North Central Ohio. And I'm thinking, well, what do our churches do on Sunday?
Yeah.
I mean, but how many supply? Eastern Kentucky has been doing this for quite a while, and North Central Ohio has been doing this. And again, I'm like, well, what do the churches do? And they said in the beginning of when they went to that cycle, the churches barked about it. You know, well, you got to be here, Pastor. What are we going to do? We can't live without you. It's really. But after they've done it for a few years, it just becomes part of life. And it's like, this is what we do. And it's good. It's, you know, for the pastors, then for our bivocational pastors, or I shouldn't just say bivocational because some work on Saturday, but you would be able to come over the weekend and not lose any days.
Well, even the Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday is awesome. you know, I have personal days I can use for some of this stuff, so that would be neat.
So now the district I moved from, we had a lot of people who said, get it off the week part, and they went to this Thursday, Friday. Well, you know what? People still complain. I mean, you can't stop that. And there were a lot again, my vocational pastors who said, I can't do it on Saturday. Saturday's my only day to this and this and this, and I can't give that up. And so there's always that conflict. I understand that.
You gotta make choices.
But we want to hear from you, and what do you think there? Now, also the purpose, and I've got 4 purposes, because what do we do with these retreats? If we're going to have intention and purpose, why do we do it? And I wanted you to know, 1 is, this isn't important to me, 5 is important. Rest and relaxation. 2, friendship and time with others. 3, spiritual renewal. 4, professional development. How do we want these? Again, I know some districts, every district does it a little bit different. But some districts you come and they have like an evening gathering time, but the rest, it's really focused around rest and relaxation and friendship and time with others. And how do we want this schedule? You know, how do we want to do this? Because we want to provide something that's for you, again, with intention. So I need to know. So Janet's going to pass these out. Spend a little bit of time, fill these out and give these back to us. And here's what we're going to do. Fill that out. It's 11:30. We're going to take a couple minute break, use the bathroom, and do these. And then we're just going to end with the time of worship and prayer. So we're going to give you to 11:45. At 11:45, come up in the chairs in the sanctuary part, and we'll pray and worship together.